No. I am so done with this. This is crazy. No.
A few moments later.
What is up, everyone? It's Carmen here from drcarmenjames.com, and today I'm going to be speaking all about digital detoxing. What exactly a digital detox is, and if you should consider taking one yourself. In my previous video on self-care, I spoke a little bit about one of the ways that I like to take care of myself is by going on a digital detox every now and again. Now, let's start off by saying that technology is not all bad. Technology has in fact transformed our entire lives, and many of us rely on our devices and our computer screens to run our businesses and to do the work that we do on a daily basis. And so I'm not by any means saying that technology is bad. However, there are some instances where the way we use technology is actually negatively affecting our health, and whether that be our mental health and well-being or our physical health and well-being, in some instances, the way we're using technology is actually eroding our sense of well-being. And so I'm going to be speaking a little bit more about some of the ways that technology can do that, and about how to go and do a digital detox. So if that sounds interesting to you, then keep watching. So as I said before, technology is not all bad, but in some instances, we can find ourselves sitting on our screens and comparing our lives to the highlight reels that we see on social media, for example. Now, every time you scroll on your phone, you can think about it as if you're getting like a little dopamine fix every time you scroll down your social media feed. For example, every time they pull the lever, I know nowadays there's probably no levers, it's just a push button, but every time you push the button or pull the lever, you're kind of getting like a dopamine hit because there's a buildup of the unknown, you're uncertain as to what the result's going to be when you look at the screen. And so in some cases, that buildup of anxiety and that buildup of anticipation actually gives your body a sense of pleasure. And it's exactly the same when you're scrolling on social media. So that can actually lead to a dependence on social media. If you've ever felt like you don't know where your phone is and you feel like you're missing out on something, or if you hear your phone going off, for example, and you get this urgent need to go and pick up your phone and see what it is that you're missing out on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that can cause a dependence on our phones because we need that dopamine hit every now and then to trigger the pleasure centers in our brains. So if you feel like you can't go a day without your phone, or like you need to be checking your phone every few minutes, then you may need to consider going on a digital detox. Another thing that spending so much time behind our screens can do is it can disrupt our sleep-wake cycle. So the blue light coming from our devices can actually trick our brains into thinking that it's daytime when in fact it's no longer daytime. So there's a gland inside your brain called the pineal gland, and that gland releases melatonin. And melatonin tells your body that it's actually time to sleep. But the blue light from our phones can prevent the melatonin from being released, and that can trick our brains into thinking that it's still daytime, and it can prevent us from falling asleep at night. So if you struggle with insomnia or even with staying asleep at night, then perhaps it's time for you to consider a digital detox. The other thing that social media and spending so much time on technology can do is it can start to cause discontentment with our lives. If you think about it, we're looking at our screens and we're comparing our entire lives with the highlight reels of people's lives that we're seeing on social media. And so as a result, we can end up feeling like our lives are just not good enough, or that we haven't achieved enough, and we can start feeling like what we have is just not enough. And so this compare and despair cycle is part of the negative impact that social media and technology can have on our lives. The other thing that happens when you're spending so much time behind your screen is you start to live a more sedentary lifestyle, meaning that you're not as active and you're not moving around as much as you should be doing. In an upcoming video, I'm going to be talking about how sitting is like the new smoking and the detrimental effect that sitting so much has on our health and well-being. But ultimately, if you're spending a lot of time behind your screens and not engaging in social activities or getting out into nature and exercising, for example, then that puts you in a position where your physical and your mental health can suffer as a result. And the other thing that we need to be thinking about when it comes to the way we're interacting with technology is the fact that it pulls us us away and it isolates us from real human interaction. So I'm sure you've seen in a restaurant, for example, people sitting around a table and everybody sitting on their phones when there's people actually sitting around the table with them. So in some cases, technology can prevent us from having social interactions with people, and we can start to feel like we would much prefer to spend our time interacting on the phone than we would interacting with people in the real world. And so what a digital detox is, it's voluntarily deciding to limit the amount of time you spend on your devices or using social media, and rather engaging in real world activities or doing some or other activity that is more productive. So this may look different for different people. Like I said earlier in the video, it depends on the amount of time you have to spend on social media for your job, for example. But we're speaking specifically about using social media and devices on a social level. One of the easiest things you can do is get onto your phone and go under the settings tab and check exactly how much time you are spending on your screens. You can find it under the screen time tab on your phone settings. It would be interesting to have a look at how much time you're spending on your phone, as well as which applications you're spending the most time on. So one of the things that you can do to limit the amount of time that you're spending on your phone is to set a timer. So some phones come with a timer built into them that limits the amount of time that you spend on your phone using social media. The other thing that you can do is to cancel out your notifications. Remember, as I said earlier, if you hear your phone going off, or even sometimes the banner that drops down onto your screen can make you feel the urgency to click so that you can make sure that you're not missing out on anything. If you remove those notifications and you turn off the sounds, it can reduce that urgency that starts to build up and that anticipation that starts to build up when you feel like you're actually going to miss out on something on your phone. Another thing that you can do is find an activity to replace the time that you would spend scrolling on social media. So going cold turkey altogether may be difficult if you don't have an activity to replace the time that you would have been using scrolling on your social media feeds. And so maybe you've been wanting to invest more time learning how to paint, or perhaps getting more active and joining a dance group, or perhaps you want to start getting out into nature a little bit more and going for a walk. Find an activity that you can replace the time that you spend using on your screen so that it makes that time feel like you're not just kind of sitting there and watching time pass by. The other thing that you can do instead of completely deactivating your accounts is to delete the applications off of your phone. Sometimes we go on our phones on autopilot. We're not really thinking about it. We just pick up our phones because we're used to picking up our phones and scrolling and looking at all the applications on our phones. And so if the application is not there, it's going to reduce your tendency to spend excessive amounts of time on that particular application. So if you don't want to deactivate your account altogether, then just delete it from your phone for a period of time. Now, as I said earlier, this is going to look different for different people, but I would recommend that you take at least a week's break from those applications that perhaps are causing a bit of tension and a bit of anxiety, and perhaps even affecting your ability to be productive in the world. Maybe you've noticed that you're spending a huge amount of time on a particular app, and you could have actually spent that time studying or doing more work and being more productive. So even detoxing for a period of 7 days, for example, may be just what you need to reduce the amount of time that you aimlessly spend behind your phone screen, and rather spend that time focusing on something more productive and more fulfilling. And so if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like it. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notified every time I post a new video. I'm curious to know whether you're interested in going on a digital detox. If you are, let me know in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye.